Hello and welcome to Film Physicality. In this video, I'll be ranking all 19 Prime original horror movies on Prime Video. Let's get to it. So yeah, there's only 19 Prime original horrors, and some that I have on this list are not even labeled as horror. And remember, this is just for the ones that are labeled Amazon Originals, so it doesn't include any others for which they have a license to stream. But yeah, I watched all of them and I'll be ranking them here, so let's get started. Starting off at number 19, Bingo Hell is part of Prime's Welcome to Blumhouse series. It's directed by Gigi Saul Guerrero, who also directed Culture Shock. It's about a group of strong and stubborn elderly friends who refuse to be gentrified, but their beloved bingo hall is about to be sold to a much more powerful force than money itself. So I don't know, I didn't really like this one. Neither the characters or the story were interesting. It doesn't have very good writing. It also has bad editing in my opinion, and it's also not very funny at all to be labeled a horror comedy. Richard Brake's character is pretty interesting though. A seemingly perfect romance turns dark when a mother becomes convinced that her daughter's new boyfriend has a sinister connection to her own past. Evil Eye is also part of the Welcome to Blumhouse series, and it's directed by Rajiv Dasani and Ilan Dasani. This one has a very interesting concept, but not a very good execution. It has no real suspense or horror, which would have been fine, but it also suffers from pacing issues, bad editing, and not very good performances. At number 17, Run Sweetheart Run is directed by Shanna Feste, who also directed Endless Love, and it's about a woman that runs for her life through the streets of Los Angeles after her blind date suddenly turns violent. So this one has pretty good camera work that I liked, and a very good performance from the lead as well, but I just couldn't get into it at all. It's a pretty messy storyline, in which most of it wasn't very believable within the world it created. It was also pretty cringe most of the time. A father and daughter are on their way to dance camp when they spot the daughter's best friend on the side of the road. When they stop to offer the friend a ride, their good intentions soon result in terrible consequences. The Lie is directed by Venus Sott and is part of the Welcome to Blumhouse series. This is another one with a great premise and concept, but not a very good execution. Although this one I found pretty interesting and I enjoyed it most of the time. Although it does have faults with a lot of it not making sense or not being very believable. At number 15, Goodnight Mommy is the American remake of the German film of the same name. When twin brothers arrive home to find their mother's face covered in surgical bandages and her demeanor altered, they begin to suspect the woman beneath might not be their mother. So I had watched the original before, but I tried watching this one with an open mind, but pretty much all the great suspense and the mystery elements from the original is just lost on this one. So yeah, the original is a lot better, but if you refuse to read subtitles, then this one is at least watchable, at least for the plot twist and for Naomi Watts, who gives a great performance. A teenage girl with self-esteem issues finds confidence in the most unlikely way, by spending her summer battling vampires with her group of friends. Blackest Night is part of the Welcome to Blumhouse series and is directed by Marity Lee Go. This is just a pretty generic vampire horror comedy where everything has been done before, but it's still an enjoyable watch. So if that's what you're looking for, then I do recommend this one. At number 13, Madres is also part of the Welcome to Blumhouse series and is directed by Ryan Zaragoza. A Mexican-American couple expecting their first child relocate to a migrant farming community in 1970s California. When the wife begins to experience strange symptoms and terrifying visions, she tries to determine if it's related to a legendary curse or something more nefarious. So, on this one, the drama and the mystery were so good, and they really kept my attention. But then the horror elements are just horrible. They felt really forced, like they were just put there in order to just be able to call this movie a horror movie. When an aspiring model moves to Los Angeles, her youth and vitality are envied by a group of beauty-obsessed women who will take any means necessary to get what she has. The Neon Demon is directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, who also directed Drive. This one has great directing and camera work and great performances as well. And I do get what it's trying to say, but I just think it went overboard with all the artsy scenes. There were too many and too repetitive that just made most of the movie be boring. But I did still truly enjoyed it, especially the scenes near the end. At number 11, The Voyeurs is directed by Michael Mohan, who also directed Save the Date, and it stars Sydney Sweeney and Justin Smith. This is about a couple who move into their dream apartment, and they notice that their windows look directly into the apartment opposite, inviting them to witness the volatile relationship of the attracted couple across the street. But this will have dangerous consequences. So the acting on this, in my opinion, was not very believable at times, especially in the beginning. but the story got pretty engaging afterwards. All of the plot twists definitely helped, and overall I think it's a pretty good one to watch. Okay, so we've now made it to the top 10 horror Prime Video originals, and at number 10, directed by Nikiatu Yusu, who I believe this is her feature film directorial debut, Nanny is about an undocumented immigrant who lands a job as a nanny for a wealthy Manhattan couple. As she prepares for the arrival of the son she left behind in Senegal, a violent presence begins to invade both her dreams and her reality. So this one is mostly good in my opinion. It deals with the subject of immigrants looking for the American dream, and it's mostly pretty devastating. My main issue though is that it mostly felt boring and repetitive, dangling for too long on the same things. But overall a good watch, like I said. After suffering a stroke, Judith moves into a historic nursing home, where she begins to suspect something supernatural is preying on the residents. With no one willing to believe her, she must now escape the confines of the manor, or fall victim to the evil that dwells within. The Manor is directed by Axel Carlin, who also directed an episode of The Haunting of Bly Manor. So this one was a bit predictable, and most of the decisions were not very believable, especially in the end, with also some loose ends as well. But other than that though, I really enjoyed this one. It has a good story, it's pretty original, and it has very good horror elements, and great acting from the lead as well. At number 8, My Best Friend's Exorcism is directed by Damon Thomas, and it's about two best friends, Abby and Gretchen, who after an evening goes disastrously wrong, Gretchen begins to act different, which leads Abby to suspect that her best friend may be possessed by a demon. So this one is a horror comedy, and while it's not super great, it's still a pretty fun film, with a fun twist on the possession and exorcism elements, and with a decent cast as well. I wasn't expecting much, but I did like it more than I expected. Farm Side! At number 7, Get Duked is directed by Nini and Dove, and it's just a hip-hop inspired comedy that follows four city boys on a wilderness trek as they try to escape a mysterious huntsman. So while this is not always as funny as it thinks it is, and it's also ridiculously over the top, I still think it's a very fun movie. I mean, just the song that they sing near the end is hilarious. Three women strive to find their place at an elite university when anonymous racist attacks target a black freshman who insists she is being haunted by ghosts. Each woman must determine where the real menace lies. Master is Mariama Diallo's feature film directorial debut, and it's a solid horror thriller that keeps your interest throughout. Although the horror scenes are done pretty well, they are pretty few, and I think they focus too heavily on dream sequences for the horror. At number 5, I have Black Box. This is another one from the Welcome to Blumhouse series, and this one is directed by Emmanuel Osei Kufor Jr., which I'm probably saying wrong. But this one is about a single father who, after losing his wife and his memory in a car accident, undergoes an experimental treatment that causes him to question who he really is. So this one does have its flaws. It's not very great acting with the exception of the little girl, and also a lot from the movie is not very believable, but I still truly enjoyed this one though. It has a very interesting story, very similar to like a Black Mirror episode, which I definitely don't mind. And then it has some plot twists which can be predictable but are still fun to see play out. Inside the halls of an elite arts academy, a timid music student begins to outshine her more accomplished and outgoing twin sister when she discovers a mysterious notebook belonging to a recently deceased classmate. Nocturne is directed by Zhu Quirk, and it's definitely my favorite out of the Welcome to Blumhouse series. Sure, it's a similar story of an obsessed musician like we've seen in other movies like Whiplash, Suspiria, and Black Swan, but in my opinion, there actually needs to be more of those. It's a premise that gets me, and it's even better if you add supernatural elements to it. And the casting of this one is also great. Sydney Sweeney especially gives a great performance. Okay, so we've now made it to the top 3 Prime Original horror movies, and I just wanted to give a quick reminder that if you're liking this video, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel. Let's continue on. At number 3, I have The Mad Woman's Ball. This is directed by Melanie Lawrence, which she has directed some other films, but she's most well known as an actress. She's been in a lot of films like Inglourious Basterds, Now You See Me, Enemy, Oxygen, and a lot more. And she's also an actress on this one as well. This is a French movie set in the end of the 19th century, and it's about a girl who hears and sees the dead. But when her family discovers her secret, she is institutionalized at a neurological clinic. With no possibility of escaping her fate, her destiny becomes entwined with that of a nurse at the hospital. So this one is not really labeled as horror, but it does have a lot of horror elements. And in my opinion, it's scarier than a lot of horror films. The horror fan in me does wish that they would have given more focus on the supernatural elements, but the supernatural does make for an interesting side story. And then the main story is very intriguing as well. The movie also has great atmosphere and acting. It does sadly sometimes get a bit dull and repetitive though. A darkness swirls at the center of a world-renowned dance company, one that will engulf the troupe's artistic director, an ambitious young dancer, and a grieving psychotherapist. Some will succumb to the nightmare, others will finally wake up. Suspiria is directed by Luca Guadagnino, who also directed the recent Bones and All. And the movie is a remake of a giallo film from the same name, directed by Dario Argento. I did watch both, but I actually watched this one first before watching the original. And I liked both of them, but I slightly prefer the original. To me, the original is just a little bit more down to earth. This one just gets too artsy, especially near the end, where they just go overboard with the artsy scenes. But they're both pretty different movies, and I really did enjoy this one. It stars Dakota Johnson, Mia Goth, and Tilda Swinton, and all of them give great performances. And the set pieces, effects, and camera work are great as well. And at number 1, my top Prime Video horror movie is The Handmaiden. And yeah, I know this is not labeled as horror, but to me, it just feels very horror adjacent, and I think it's a film that any horror fan would enjoy. It's directed by Park Chan-wook, who has also directed Oldboy, Lady Vengeance, and a lot of other films. And I'm not gonna even really try to say what it's about. I think it's best to go into this one as blindly as you can. The movie has so many plot twists since the beginning, and it's just taking you in a different direction every time. So yeah, lots of surprises and very entertaining. I really didn't expect to like this movie so much. It is a Korean movie, so you would have to read subtitles, but don't let that stop you from watching it. It is a very good one, and one I think that everyone should watch. So that's it for my list of best Prime original horrors. And let me know what you think of this list. Let me know if you agree, if you don't agree, and let me know if I missed anything, which I don't think I did, but I could have. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember, please like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.